Claire texted safe, and her phone chimed back instantly, from Evan's number. Nice try. I can still see you. Across the street, a pair of headlights clicked on, slow, watching, like the night had been waiting for her to exhale.
Is that?
It's all right.
If you've ever loved someone the world didn't understand, like, subscribe, and stay, you're gonna feel this one. Comment love wins if you're staying, because this couple is about to be tested. The rush hit like weather, sudden, loud, unavoidable. Claire Maddox moved through it like she'd been trained for war in a skirt. Plates burned her palms even through the towel. Coffee splashed her wrist. A toddler screamed because ketchup wasn't the right red. A man in a suit snapped his fingers like she was a remote control that had stopped responding. She smiled anyway. Claire had the kind of body people commented on like they were reviewing a product. Thick hips, a soft waist that curved into confidence when she remembered she was allowed to take up space, full thighs that brushed together when she walked fast. She'd learned to carry herself like none of it hurt, like no one's stare could reach her ribs. Honey blonde hair, usually pinned, had started escaping in loose waves, sticking to her cheek when the kitchen heat climbed. Her lipstick stayed on by stubbornness alone. Table 12 needs ranch, Table 6 wants the check, and Table 2's asking if the pie is actually homemade. Ron called from behind the counter, already irritated like the night had personally offended him. "It is homemade," Claire said, grabbing ranch. Ron scoffed. "Homemade by Cisco, maybe." Claire didn't laugh. She couldn't spare the breath. Money was a math problem that never solved. Rent, car insurance, student loan minimums, the electric bill that kept blinking red on the app like a warning light. Tips were supposed to be the cushion. Lately, they were a thin blanket over a cold floor. And then there was Evan. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket as she squeezed past the swinging kitchen door. She didn't have to look to know it was him. When she finally stole a glance by the soda machine, her screen confirmed it. Evan. "You working late again?" "Answer me, Claire." "I'm outside later. We need to talk." Her throat tightened like someone had cinched a ribbon around it. Evan was the kind of man who could sound gentle in public and dangerous in private. He never hit her, never left bruises anyone could point to, but he left dents in her day. He made her second-guess her own memory, made her apologize for things he did. When she ended it, he'd laughed like she was joking. Then he'd cried. Then he'd started showing up places. Claire slid the phone back into her pocket, hands shaking just enough to make the ice scoop rattle. "Hey!" came a voice from behind her, soft, low, not demanding. She turned and saw Malik in the narrow gap between the soda station and the dish pit door. Malik Hayes didn't belong to the dining room the way Claire did, but he belonged to the building like a foundation belongs to a house, tall. Broad shoulders under a plain black tee, deep brown skin that caught the fluorescent light with a quiet sheen. His hair was close-cropped, his beard neat, his expression always controlled like he'd made a deal with his temper a long time ago. He worked the dish pit, endless plates, endless forks, endless proof of other people's appetites. He didn't flirt with waitresses. He didn't make comments. He didn't try to be funny in a way that demanded applause. He just worked, steady and competent, like he believed the world might eventually reward consistency. "I got the ramekins," Malik said, holding up a metal pan. "You were low." "Oh, thank you." Claire took them without thinking, their fingers almost brushing. His hands were warm from the steam and soap. Strong hands. Careful hands. Malik nodded like, no big deal, and stepped back. She'd noticed him before, of course. It was hard not to notice the calm in a place built on chaos. But they weren't friends. They were two people orbiting the same exhaustion. Claire returned to the floor, weaving through tables with ranch and extra napkins, repeating the same bright phrases until her voice started to feel borrowed. By 10:30, the crowd thinned. The diner sank into its late-night version of quiet, neon humming, silverware clinking, the last few customers talking like they were trying not to wake the whole city. Claire wiped down a booth and caught her reflection in the window. Smeared mascara at the edges, lipstick faded, hair half fallen. She looked like someone who was trying hard to be fine. "You good?" asked Trina, another waitress, as she rolled silverware. "Yeah," Claire lied. Trina's eyes softened. "You sure? You've been, tight." Claire forced a laugh. "Just tired." Tired doesn't text you 50 times, Trina said under her breath, glancing at Claire's apron pocket like she could see the buzzing through fabric. Claire's stomach dipped. He's not. She stopped. There was no sentence that fixed it. I can handle it. Trina's mouth pressed into a line that said she didn't believe her, but she didn't push. People had bills. People had pride. People had reasons they didn't say out loud. By midnight, Ron finally shouted, "Last call for refills," like he was announcing freedom. Claire made her final loop, dropping checks, gathering plates. In the kitchen, the dish pit roared with water and steam. Malik stood behind the machine, arms wet to the elbow, moving in a practiced rhythm. Scrape, rinse, rack, slide, repeat. The motion was almost hypnotic. She watched for half a second too long. Malik glanced up and caught her looking. Not in a gotcha way, just aware. Like he'd seen people's faces enough to recognize when something was wrong, even if they were smiling. Claire quickly looked away, heat rising to her cheeks. When the last customers left, the diner turned into aftermath, tables littered with crumbs, napkins balled up like surrender flags. Claire started her closing duties, wiping menus, refilling ketchup, sweeping under booths. At the register, the tip jar sat half full, the plastic sides smudged with fingerprints. Claire lifted it to count, tipping the bills and coins onto a clean towel. A folded 5, 2 ones, a scatter of change, and something else. A small piece of paper, crumpled tight like someone had tried to swallow their nerve and failed. It tumbled out with the quarters and landed by her thumb. Claire frowned and smoothed it open. At first she thought it was trash, a receipt, a kid's doodle, but the handwriting was careful, not fancy, just intentional. You shouldn't have to carry fear like it's part of your uniform. Claire's breath snagged. She read it again, slower, like the words might change if she blinked. I see how you flinch when your phone lights up. I see how you force your smile back on. You deserve to be safe. If you ever need someone to walk you to your car, say the word. No questions, no expectations. At the bottom was a name, just a first name written like a quiet signature. Malik. Claire stared so hard her eyes burned. Her throat filled the way it did when she tried not to cry in public. It wasn't even that the note was romantic. It wasn't a pick-up line. It wasn't a compliment about her body or her face. It wasn't a man demanding her attention. It was someone saying, "I noticed you as a human being." The room felt suddenly too bright. Claire looked around as if someone might be watching her read. Ron was counting the drawer at the other end of the counter, muttering to himself. Trina had already gone to the back to clock out. The kitchen was still humming, the dish machine coughing its final breaths of steam. Claire folded the note once, twice, hands trembling. Her first instinct was to throw it away, reject help before it could embarrass her. Her second instinct was to tuck it somewhere safe like a secret prayer. She slid it into her apron pocket. Then her phone buzzed again. "I'm here." Claire's pulse slammed against her ribs. The diner's front windows showed the parking lot in dark, glossy reflections. Rain had started, thin at first, then harder, turning the pavement into a mirror for the streetlights. Claire swallowed, forced her hands to keep moving, kept stacking receipts like that would make her brave. She clocked out, grabbed her coat, told herself she was overreacting, told herself Evan wouldn't do anything with Ron in the building, told herself she could handle a talk. At the door, her fingers hesitated on the lock. Her phone vibrated again. "Evan, don't make me wait." Claire's vision blurred at the edges. She thought about the note in her pocket, the steady handwriting. No questions, no expectations. Her pride screamed at her not to need anyone. Her fear begged her to survive. Claire turned toward the kitchen. The dish pit light was still on. Steam curled upward like a ghost. Malik was there, wiping down the station, shoulders squared, face calm. He looked up as if he'd felt her decide. Claire opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Malik didn't rush her. He just set down the towel and waited, hands visible, posture easy, like he was giving her room to choose. Claire finally managed a whisper. "Malik?" He stepped closer, not too close, never looming. "Yeah?" Her fingers dug into her coat sleeve. Are you still here for a minute?" Malik's eyes softened in a way that made her chest ache. "As long as you need." Outside, a car horn tapped once, impatient, sharp. Claire flinched. Malik glanced toward the front windows, then back to her, voice low. "Is that him?" Claire nodded, the motion small and embarrassed. Malik didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't ask what she did to make Evan act that way. He didn't make her explain herself like a courtroom. He only said, "Okay, you're not walking out there alone." And in the diner's harsh fluorescent light, between the smell of soap and coffee and rain, Claire realized she was shaking, and for the first time in a long time, someone wasn't asking her to pretend she wasn't. Malik moved first, not in a rush, more like a decision settling into his bones. He reached past Claire toward the wall by the back door and flicked off the dish pit light, leaving only the softer glow from the kitchen pass through. The sudden dim made the whole diner feel smaller, safer, like the building itself was leaning in to shield her. "Ron," Malik called, voice steady. Ron looked up from the register drawer, annoyed before he even understood why. "We're closed." "I know." Malik didn't raise his volume. "Can you lock the front and keep it locked for a minute?" Ron's irritation faltered when he saw Claire's face, pale under her makeup, eyes too wide, one hand braced against her own ribcage like she was holding herself together. "What's going on?" Claire tried to speak and couldn't. Malik answered for her without exposing her. "There's a man outside who won't leave." Ron's mouth tightened. He glanced toward the dark windows, where rain streaked down like scribbles. "Again?" he muttered, like he'd been noticing more than Claire realized. He shoved the drawer closed hard enough to make the coins inside clink. "Fine. Door stays locked." Trina emerged from the back with her purse already shrugging into her jacket. She took one look at Claire and stopped. "Oh, hell no," she said softly, anger instantly replacing sleepiness. "Is he out there?" Claire's shame flared hot and sharp. She hated that anyone knew. Hated that she'd become the kind of story people whispered about near the soda machine. Malik stepped slightly in front of her, not blocking her, just making space. "Trina, can you stay a minute too?" "I'm not going anywhere," Trina said, already pulling out her phone like a weapon. Claire swallowed. I don't want a scene." Malik turned his head just enough for his voice to be for her alone. "We're not making a scene. We're making you safe. That's different." Something in Claire's chest loosened, just a thread, but enough to breathe. Malik walked with her toward the front, his pace matching hers. When they reached the windows, he didn't yank the blinds or peek like it was a show. He simply angled his gaze out, calm and assessing. A car sat near the curb, engine running. The headlights weren't on, but the parking lights glowed a dull orange through the rain. A man leaned against the driver's door, shoulders tense like a coiled spring. Even from inside, Claire recognized the stance, possessive impatience disguised as wounded concern. Evan lifted his head as if he felt her presence. His eyes found her through the glass. His smile was immediate and practiced, the same one he used when he wanted to look harmless. He raised a hand, waving like she'd invited him. Claire's stomach rolled. Malik's voice stayed even. "Is that him?" Claire nodded. "Okay." Malik didn't say it like a question. "Do you want to talk to him?" "No." The word came out raw, almost a sob. "I just want to go home." Malik's gaze held hers. "Does he know where you live?" Claire hesitated. The truth tasted like metal. "Yes!" Trina cursed under her breath. Ron muttered, "Unbelievable," as if Evan had broken a rule he'd never been taught not to break. Malik didn't react with drama. He didn't make a face that said she'd been stupid. He only adjusted his plan like a man changing routes around a storm. "Then we're not going straight there," Malik said. Claire blinked. I can't just..." "You can," he said, gentle but firm. "For tonight, you can." Evan tapped on the glass once. Then again, not hard enough to draw attention, but sharp enough to announce himself. Claire flinched so visibly her body betrayed her before her pride could. Malik's jaw tightened just once. He stepped closer to the door, palms open, shoulders loose, no aggression, no invitation to fight. He nodded at Ron. "Unlock it when I say, not before." Ron grunted. "I'm not dumb." Malik looked back at Claire. "You stay behind me if you want me to stop at any point. Tell me." She wanted to say she didn't need protecting. She wanted to be the kind of woman who walked out alone, chin high, and never looked over her shoulder. But her throat was too tight for lies. Claire nodded. Malik exhaled slowly and said, "Now." Ron unlocked the door and immediately relocked it halfway, chain still latched, the kind of compromise a diner learned the hard way. Malik stepped into the gap the chain allowed, just enough that his voice could carry outside. Evan's smile sharpened. "Who the hell are you?" Malik didn't flinch. Someone who works here. Evan's gaze flicked past him to Claire. Claire, seriously? You hiding in there like I'm a stranger? I'm worried about you. Claire's skin crawled at the word worried, the way he used it like a leash. Malik's tone stayed level. She doesn't want to talk. Evan laughed, a short sound with no humour. She's upset. She's dramatic when she's tired. Open the door. Trina's voice cut in from behind, loud and clear. Back up, Evan. Evan's eyes snapped to her. This is none of your business. It's our business when you show up here after close like you own the place, Ron called, finally finding his backbone. Evan's expression changed, the mask slipping, then slamming back into place. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to speak to my... He paused, searching for the word that would give him power. My girl. Claire felt something crack in her. My girl, like she was a possession he'd misplaced. Her hand found the folded note in her pocket, paper pressed to her fingertips like a reminder that someone had seen her fear and didn't use it against her. She stepped forward before she could talk herself out of it, voice shaking but audible. I told you to stop coming here. Evan's eyes widened with fake pain. Claire, come on. No, she said again, stronger this time. Stop. For a beat, the rain sounded louder than anything else. Then Evan's face hardened, anger flashing like heat behind glass. You're letting him talk for you now? His gaze raked Malik, contempt obvious. You got yourself a hero? A dishwasher playing protector? Malik didn't move, didn't bite. His calm was infuriating in a way violence never was. Step away from the door, he said simply. Evan took a half step closer instead. Or what? Malik's voice stayed low. Or we call the police, and we show them your messages, and we file it properly. Evan's eyes darted just once, like the word properly spooked him. He tried to recover with a scoff. You don't know what you're talking about. Trina lifted her phone where he could see it. Ron added, cameras too. Evan blinked, recalculating. His smile returned, thin and venomous. Claire, you're making this into something it isn't. Claire's legs felt like water. She steadied herself by planting her feet. Thick thighs, strong hips. Her body had carried her through worse days than this. She refused to let it fold now. It is something, she said, voice trembling with truth. And I'm done. Evan stared at her for a long second, then leaned toward the glass with a whisper meant to cut deep. You'll regret this. Malik's hand lifted slightly, not to touch her, not without permission, but close enough that she felt the option of safety hovering there. Leave, he said, quiet and final. Evan backed away slowly like he wanted the last word to echo. Fine, he called, voice suddenly loud again. Go ahead, hide, but you can't hide forever. He climbed into his car and slammed the door. The engine revved. Water sprayed from the tires as he pulled off too fast, taillights smearing red across the wet street. Claire didn't realize she'd been holding her breath until it rushed out of her in a shaky exhale. Her knees threatened to give. Trina rushed forward, arms open. Claire shook her head, not ready for a hug. Not ready to be handled. She needed to stay upright on her own terms. Malik closed the door, chain still latched, and turned to face her fully. You did good, he said. The words hit her harder than Evan's threats. Because no one ever said that after she stood up for herself. They either asked why she waited so long, or they told her she was overreacting, or they tried to fix her like she was broken furniture. Malik just witnessed her. Claire's eyes burned. He's going to come back, she whispered. Maybe, Malik said honestly. But not tonight. Not while we're smart. Ron pointed at the back hallway. Office has a phone. Use it. Call whoever you need. Trina jabbed her thumb toward the window. And I'll walk you to your car, or I'll drive you myself. We're not playing with this. Claire swallowed again. Pride tried to rise. Stiff and useless, fear knocked it down. Malik kept his voice soft. Where do you feel safest right now? Claire opened her mouth, and the truth came out like it had been waiting for permission. Not home. Malik nodded once, like that answer made complete sense. Okay, then we do the next safest thing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. You're going to sit where you can breathe. Trina's going to stay with you, and I'm going to make a call either to someone you trust or to a place that can help. Your choice. Claire stared at him, the steadiness, the lack of pressure. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice small. Malik's eyes didn't look away. Because I saw you, he said simply, and because nobody should have to wish for that. Her chest caved inward, emotion rushing up so fast it scared her. She pressed her thumb into her palm hard enough to hurt, trying to anchor herself. Malik noticed. Of course he did, but he didn't comment. He only shifted a little closer, careful, respectful. "Can I sit?" he asked, nodding toward the booth by the front window. Claire nodded, and when he slid into the booth across from her, he stayed at a distance that didn't feel like a trap. His hands rested on the table, open, visible, like a promise. The neon buzzed above them. Rain kept tapping at the glass like a nervous question. Claire pulled the crumpled note from her pocket and smoothed it again like she needed proof this was real. Her voice cracked. "I've been trying to act like it's not happening," she confessed. "Like if I ignore him, he'll get bored." Malik's gaze held hers, steady as a hand on her back. "And has he?" Claire shook her head. Tears finally spilled, hot and humiliating. "No." Malik didn't rush her. He didn't tell her to calm down. He waited while she breathed through the wave, then asked, "Do you have someone you can stay with tonight?" Claire wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, mascara smearing a little. "My sister," she whispered, "but she's across town. And he checks my location sometimes. I didn't even realize until once he showed up somewhere I didn't tell him about." Trainor's face twisted with disgust. "That is criminal." Malik's voice remained calm, but something hard lived beneath it now, protective and unmovable. "We can turn that off," he said. "Tonight. We can document everything. We can make a plan." Claire looked at him through tears, and the fear that had been running her life finally met something stronger than itself. Her phone buzzed again on the table, one harsh vibration that made her flinch. Malik didn't touch it. He only leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning the screen from a respectful distance. "Evan, I'm not done." Claire's breath hitched, and through the rain-streaked glass far down the street, a familiar pair of headlights appeared again, slow this time, crawling back toward the diner like a threat that had learned patience. The headlights didn't rush this time. They crept, slow and deliberate, like Evan had realized speed made him look guilty, and patience made him look entitled. Claire's whole body reacted before her mind could catch up. Her shoulders jumped, her stomach hollowed, her fingers clawing at the edge of the booth, like she could anchor herself to the vinyl. "That's him," she whispered, and hated how small her voice sounded. Trina was already standing, phone up, recording again. Ron swore and shoved the register drawer closed, like he could seal the night inside it. Malik didn't move fast. He moved sure. "Everyone stay back," Malik said quietly. He slid out of the booth and stepped toward the door with the same calm he'd had the first time, palms open, shoulders relaxed. No challenge, no fear, just presence, like a wall you couldn't argue with. Evan's car stopped right in front of the diner. The engine stayed running. Of course it did. He wanted the option to leave quickly if he needed to, but he wanted Claire to see he was still in control. Evan got out, rain slicking his hair and jacket. He didn't look drunk. That was the worst part. He looked decided. He walked up to the door and yanked the handle once, hard, locked. He yanked again. The chain held. Evan lifted his face toward the glass. His eyes found Claire immediately, like he'd been aiming at her all along. "Claire!" he shouted, voice muffled by the door but still sharp. "Open it. Now." Claire's heart slammed. She wanted to disappear into the booth cushion. She wanted to become air. Malik leaned close to the chain gap again, speaking evenly, loud enough to be heard and recorded. "You need to leave." Evan's laugh came out wet and ugly. "Who do you think you are?" "A worker," Malik said. "And this place is closed." Evan's gaze flicked past Malik's shoulder, hungry for Claire. "You're really going to let him control you?" Claire's throat burned. She swallowed and forced herself to stand, even though her knees didn't want to cooperate. Thick thighs trembling, hips steadying her like they'd been built for survival, she moved into view beside Malik, but not too close, not pressed into him like a shield, just beside him, like a choice. "I told you to stop," she said, voice shaking. "Stop coming here. Stop contacting me. Stop." Evan's face twisted, the mask cracking again. "I'm not hurting you." "You are," Claire said simply. The words sounded like a bell, clear, undeniable. Trina sucked in a breath like she'd been waiting for Claire to say it out loud. Evan's jaw flexed. His eyes dropped, just briefly, to Claire's body, like he was reminding himself of what he thought he owned. "You're making a mistake," he said, quieter now. "You don't know what you're doing." "I do," Claire whispered. Then louder, leave. Evan's hand rose, and for a terrifying second, Claire thought he might slam it against the glass. Instead, he pointed at Malik like he could erase him with a finger. You think you're some hero? Evan spat. You don't know her. You don't know what she's like. Stop, Malik said, still calm, but the word carried weight now, like a door closing. Evan's eyes burned. Make me. Malik didn't take the bait. He looked over his shoulder at Ron without moving his feet. Call it in. Ron nodded like he'd been waiting for permission and snatched the phone off the wall. Police. Now. Evan's posture changed instantly, tiny and quick, a man adjusting his performance. Go ahead, he called, voice suddenly louder and brighter. Call them. I'm not doing anything wrong. Trina spoke clearly toward her phone camera. It's 12:47 a.m. He's returned after being told to leave. He's trying to force entry. We're recording. Evan's face flickered at the word recording. He turned his head, scanning for cameras like the truth had just become real. Claire's phone buzzed on the booth table again. She didn't touch it. She didn't even look. Malik noticed anyway. Don't answer, he murmured to her without turning his head. You're doing everything right. The rain thickened. Neon smeared across the wet pavement like bruised light. Evan tried the door again, then stepped back, spreading his hands as if to show innocence. Claire, come on, he called. You want to do this? In front of everyone? Claire almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. Make it embarrassing so she backs down. This time she didn't. I want you gone, she said. That's all. The siren arrived faint at first, a growing thread of sound. Evan heard it too. His eyes darted toward the street. Calculations slid over his features like a cold cloth. He leaned in close to the glass, lowering his voice, trying to make it intimate again, trying to make it his. You can't keep me out forever, he whispered. Claire's skin crawled, but she didn't shrink. She didn't flinch. Malik shifted slightly, blocking Evan's line of sight without touching Claire, not as ownership, as protection, as respect. Evan's mouth tightened. He backed away with a final glare, lifting both hands in the air like a martyr. Fine, he called. I'm leaving. Happy? The cruiser pulled into the lot, lights washing the rain red and blue. Evan froze, then tried to play casual, turning toward his car like he'd just finished a normal conversation. But Trina kept filming. Ron kept talking loudly into the phone, repeating details. And Malik, calm, unshaking, stayed right at the door, waiting until the officer approached. The officer stepped out, hand near their belt, eyes sharp. What's going on? Ron started talking over himself. Trina held up her phone. Claire stood in the doorway's glow, arms wrapped around herself, jaw tight enough to crack. Malik spoke first, voice steady and clear. He was told to leave. He left. He returned. He tried to force entry. She asked him to stop contacting her. We have messages. We have video. Evan's face went pale with anger. This is ridiculous. She's overreacting. Claire surprised herself by stepping forward again, voice quiet but unwavering. I'm not. The officer looked from Evan to Claire, then to Trina's recording. Sir, the officer said, do you have a reason to be here? Evan's gaze snapped to Claire like he was begging her to fix it, to save him from consequences the way she always had. Claire didn't. I want him to leave me alone, she said. I want it documented. The officer's expression tightened into something professional. Okay, we'll do that. Evan's confidence cracked at the word documented. He tried to argue. He tried to charm. He tried to get loud. None of it worked on a report. When the officer finally instructed him to leave and warned him about trespass and harassment, Evan's eyes found Claire one last time. The threat in them wasn't even hidden anymore. Claire's hands shook, her throat filled, but Malik's voice came, low and steady at her side. He's leaving, he said. You're still here. Evan drove off under flashing lights, rain swallowing his taillights as if the night itself had finally gotten tired of him. Only when the lot was empty again did Claire realize her legs were barely holding her up. She slid back into the booth like her bones had turned to water. The adrenaline drained out of her so fast it left her cold. Trina crouched beside her, finally gentle. You did it, she whispered. You really did it. Claire's laugh came out broken. It doesn't feel like I did anything. Malik sat across from her again, not crowding, not performing, just there. You named it, he said. That's something. Ron cleared his throat awkwardly, suddenly uncomfortable with emotion. You got somewhere to go? Claire swallowed. My sister, across town. Malik nodded. Good. Claire stared at him, eyes stinging. But he knows my location sometimes. I don't even know how. Malik reached into his pocket and held up his phone, not taking hers, not grabbing. If you want, I can talk you through turning off location sharing and checking your apps. You keep the phone. I'll just point. Claire hesitated, then pulled her phone out with trembling hands and nodded. For 10 minutes, Malik guided her through settings like it was a recipe. Location services, shared accounts, password changes, two-factor authentication. He spoke in calm, simple steps. No judgment, no sighs, no how could you. When it was done, Claire felt like someone had loosened a rope she hadn't realized was around her neck. Trina offered, I'll drive you. Malik's eyes flicked to Claire, checking in. Do you want that? Claire did. But she also didn't want to be alone in a car with her fear, replaying every moment. She looked at Malik, the crumpled note still folded in her pocket like a heartbeat. Would you come too? She asked, voice barely audible. Just to the corner, to make sure he's not waiting. Malik didn't smile like he'd won something. He didn't act pleased. He just nodded. Yeah, I can do that. Outside, the rain hit Claire's face like a cold baptism. Malik walked beside her, not touching unless she asked, eyes scanning the street with a quiet vigilance that made her breathe easier. No Evan, no headlights, no shadow lurking. At Trina's car, Claire paused with her hand on the door handle. Her body trembled, exhausted and raw. She looked at Malik, and the words came before she could stop them. Why did you write that note? She whispered. Malik's gaze dropped, a rare flicker of something like vulnerability. Because I heard you one night, he said softly. You said something you thought nobody heard. Claire's breath caught. What did I say? Malik's voice was gentle. You said, I wish someone saw me. Claire pressed her lips together hard, trying not to break apart right there in the parking lot. Malik continued, quiet and honest. I didn't know how to help without making it weird. I didn't want you to feel cornered, so I wrote it, and then I almost threw it away. But I didn't. Claire's eyes spilled over. The rain hid it a little, but not enough. She pulled the note from her pocket and unfolded it again, smoothing the damp paper with her thumbs like it was fragile and sacred. You really did see me, she whispered. Malik nodded once. Yeah. Claire's voice shook. I don't know what happens next. You don't have to, Malik said. Next is just, you get to your sister safe. That's it. Claire swallowed, then did the bravest, simplest thing she'd done all night. She asked, Can I hug you? Malik blinked, surprised, then answered immediately, clear and respectful. Yes. Claire stepped into him, wrapping her arms around his solid warmth. She felt his hands hover for half a second, permission always, before he hugged her back, careful but steady, like he was holding something precious and not fragile. Claire's whole body shook with silent sobs against his chest, not because she was weak, because she'd been strong alone for too long. When she pulled back, Malik's eyes were soft, voice low. Text me when you're inside your sister's place, he said. Just safe, that's all. Claire nodded, wiping her face. Okay. Trina started the engine, wipers thumping. Claire climbed in, then looked out the window one last time. Malik stood in the rain, shoulders squared, watching until the car pulled away, like he meant what he said. Halfway across town, Claire's phone buzzed. Not Evan. A new number, Malik's. She opened the message with trembling fingers. You're not alone anymore. Claire stared at the words until her vision blurred again. And for the first time in a long time, the tightness in her chest loosened, not because the world had become safe overnight, but because she had someone who wouldn't let her pretend she didn't matter. When Trina pulled up to her sister's building, Claire typed back with shaking hands. Claire, safe. Then she added a second message, the one that felt like stepping into sunlight after living in shadows. Thank you for seeing me.